chipmunks? Welcome to the AMP Cycling Ride Review Series. I'm your host, Angry Chipmunk, and today we're in Italy taking on my favorite mountain, Stelvio. This is the pass from Prato. This route is available on Rouvy, so let's get right to it. This is a moderate length route at just over 24 kilometers long, but with 1,780 meters of elevation gain. The whole ride averages 7% and maxes out at a whopping 19%. There are 2 Strava segments included on Rouvy, with 35 segments on Strava itself. They range from 1 kilometer sections of the pass to the entire route. The full pass is considered an HC climb, with the various shorter segments ranging from Cat 1 to Cat 4. If you're considering doing this ride, however, you already know that it's going to be a tough one. The first of the included segments on Rouvy is Gomagoi. It's at the 2.6 kilometer mark, is 3.4 kilometers long with 213 meters of elevation gain. It averages 6.2% and peaks at about 9.5%. Strava considers this one to be a Cat 3 climb. The first half of this segment is really quite mellow by comparison. For the first 1 kilometer or so, you'll see the gradients range from about 2% to 9%, mostly staying in that 4 to 5% range. Once they jump up to around 8%, they will remain mostly in the 6 to 9% range for the rest of the segment. The gradients just before the start of the segment are quite a bit steeper, so once you do start on Gomagoi, it does come as a bit of a relief. There's a very slight mellowing in the gradient just after the segment ends, before hitting positive numbers all the way to the top. The second included segment is simply called Stelvio Pass. It's at the 18 kilometer mark, is 6.2 kilometers long with 517 meters of elevation gain. It averages 8.1% with a peak of 13%. Strava considers this segment to be a Cat 2 climb. This segment is the last 6 kilometers to the top and end of the route, which is just an unrelenting series of like 20 switchbacks. It's going to follow the pattern of a straight uphill to the corner, a steep tight pinch in the corner, followed by a slight mellow out of the corner and onto the next straight uphill. Pretty much every corner will be like this, with the variances being in the gradient in the corners themselves. I would recommend to maintain a steady pace through the straight and corner, but don't try to push too hard out of the corner itself. Best to keep a steady rhythm even in the mellower bits. The segment and route end with about 130 meters of downhill. It's of no use whatsoever and really just a weird way to end the ride, but it is nice to take a look at all of the interesting shops and people at the top. There are several full Stelvio segments on Strava, with the easiest find also being called Stelvio Pass. It's the full 23.2 kilometers long with 1,797 meters of elevation, averaging 7.7%. I'm not sure where the extra 17 meters of elevation gain came from, but there they are. This one is considered an HC climb. I would have much preferred to see this one included on Rouvy, as it is far more indicative of the ride itself. Almost all of the route is positive gradient, so it would have been really nice to see it displayed instead of the 2 smaller segments. Really, you'll just need to pace this one at a bit more than the other shorter passes, as the distance is quite a bit longer than a lot of the other pass-only rides. And be sure to watch the profile carefully for the whole ride and take note of the dark red sections. You'll find them mostly heading into the corners. Like all mountain passes, you'll be needing a very good warm-up and cool-down. This should be in the 15 minutes or more range of warm-up and as much cool-down as you can muster. While the start is pretty mellow, don't expect to get much in the way of warm-up from it. And as for the cool-down, be sure to get in as much as you can manage. I was only able to do about 10 minutes before turning to jelly and just melting off the bike. And as always, I recommend pre-fueling your rides with plenty of protein. I would not even recommend doing this ride if you can't pre-fuel it. It's very important on the passes to go into it with energy on board. This is a longer one, so have a good mix of food on hand. You'll want to be mixing your faster and slower acting carbs throughout the ride. Don't expect bars to show up before 15 to 20 minutes, so you'll basically be wanting to use them as follow-up and recovery. So when you see those dark reds upcoming, have something quick like gummies or chocolate, fruit puree, full sugar sports drink, or a high-carb gel. These are foods that will absorb quickly and help within 5 minutes. Spread any slower acting carbs throughout the ride at an even pace, say 10 grams at the quarter marks or something like that. Follow this one up with a protein and a magnesium supplement, and a protein-heavy meal later in the day is also a good way to help with recovery. The view on this ride is simply amazing. The mountain passes are all spectacular, and Stelvio is my favorite of them all. It's a beautiful summer day when filmed with hardly a cloud in sight. The road is sometimes an enclosed forest which drops away to showcase the rest of the Alps. And as you near the top of the mountain, all of the enclosed road drops away and you're just in amongst the tops of the mountains. At one point, the sight ahead is a staggering amount of switchbacks to the summit. It's still a very difficult ride, but the natural beauty of it makes it all worthwhile. This is a rather long pass ride, and it took me almost 2.5 hours to complete on 100% difficulty emulation. With needing around 30 minutes of extra warm-up and cool-down time, I would say to budget anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 hours for this one. It's definitely not one for time restrictions. I also wouldn't recommend stopping on this one halfway and picking it up again later. There's no real spot here to conveniently stop, and it will just make getting going again that much more difficult. Plus, no one wants to flake out on that full Stelvio Pass segment and lose out on that all-important Strava cred. So be sure to plan your day you want to do this ride carefully so that you can budget the time necessary and the rides you will do around it. You shouldn't be looking to do anything too strenuous for a couple of days surrounding a pass like this. Overall, this is an extremely tough route that I would definitely recommend for the climbing enthusiast. It's not one I would recommend for the newer climber, as pretty much all 24 kilometers is positive gradient. I don't generally care for OmniMode, but this one didn't seem to get in the way that much at all. The smoothing of the gradient map is pretty nice here, but I think that's a visual only. If you like collecting the mountain passes, Stelvio should definitely be on that list, and this route from Prato is a great example. I've done 6 different Stelvio routes across Rouvy and the old RGT platform, and this one in particular stands out as exceptional. For this route, I would give a 5 out of 5. Without a doubt, it's just like you see it in the Giro, but with better weather. A real inspiration to go and do this ride for real. For the climb, 6 out of 5. This one is very tough, mostly due to the length of the ride. The gradients are consistent, and with no real breaks, plus a ridiculous amount of switchbacks, it makes for a very challenging ride. For the view, 5 out of 5. I love Stelvio and I love the Alps, it's just gorgeous. And overall, 5 out of 5. Definitely put this one in the ride queue, and if you're interested in climbing but this is a bit out of reach yet, pop it on a lower difficulty setting and try it out. You can try multiple times, just upping the difficulty each time. Well, that's it for this review, so thanks for watching, Chipmunks. Please let me know what you think of Passo Stelvio from Prato when you've completed it. I'll leave you to finish the rest of the ride, and I'll see you next week for another review. Until then, ride on, Chipmunks, ride on. Bye.